everyone. So glad we have the beautiful weather today. So, Sage, beyond happy. Thank you so much for flying out to be here with us today.
Thank you. I'm still a little jet lagged, so you'll have to excuse any brain fog.
It's an honor to have Sage. It's great to be here with Deanne and Foundation and Unaterra team. We are beyond elated and love all the dogs as well who've made it apparently to the IIF. So Sage, for those of you who don't know, is a rising voice in climate solutions. She is recognized by Time Magazine as a next-gen future leader. Back in the day, in college, she created and led the largest student-led course at UC Berkeley on circular economy and sustainability, and then is now founder of an organization, an environmental think tank that is addressing and increasing the new narratives that we need to envision a future that is sustainable and just. So thank you, Sage, for being here. It's an honor.
Thank you.
So I will start by just saying people in this room were more the exception than the rule in knowing and recognizing the opportunity in impact investing and investing in climate solutions. But I would say that that opportunity is not necessarily known to mainstream investors. So we're really here in this chat to talk about how do we make this more mainstream? And so to start, why should investors care about this opportunity?
Thank you all for being here. We'll try to make it lively in case you're hitting a mid-afternoon slump. This will be your dose of caffeine. So, sustainability is not top of mind for most Wall Street type investors. They're not really thinking about the environment when they're making decisions about deals and what is not a good deal. And I think there's a missed opportunity there. Last year in 2025, we hit $2.3 trillion of investment into climate solutions, which was up 8% from 2024 when we reached $2 trillion finally. And so despite the political rhetoric around the pullback on climate progress, we actually didn't see that happen materially in terms of investment. And that's because the fundamentals are sound, the science has not changed, and people are really seeing this as a real opportunity. I think if you're also a typical investor who's not thinking about the environment when you're making decisions, there's also a risk factor that you're not taking into consideration. If you are buying your first home as a couple trying to set up generational wealth for your kids, or you're building a $40 billion factory, but you're not considering climate change and other environmental problems in that decision, you might be purchasing or building in an area where there's increased fire risk. Next year, or 5 years from now, 10 years from now, your insurance policy might pull your coverage, and then what happens to your loan or to your mortgage? Or if that fire actually happens, your investment could go up in flames. So I think there's an opportunity that's being missed in not considering the potential for making a lot of money in climate action, and there's also a big risk factor there in not considering it as well. The fundamental thesis here, though, is that the economy is built on the environment. I say this all the time, but the ecological stability is the foundation of our economy. There is nothing that happens out in the world, from getting seafood from the ocean to building semiconductors for AI, that is not in some way connected to and rooted in natural resources, stable supply chains, healthy ecosystems. And as we degrade those things, we are exiting our ability to model risk and to guarantee that all of those things are going to happen. That we have fish on the table, that we have stable data centers, and I don't remember the other example I gave. But the ecological, the economic foundation of the foundation of our economy is ecological stability. And so by not pricing that into the investment decisions we're making, we're really seeing, we're basically using the wrong models.
our global economy is built on an environment and a climate that no longer exists. This is one of my favorite phrases that, Sage, you have said in the past, but it's true. And that's, some of us would find, okay, maybe it's commonsensical that there's an opportunity here from an investment perspective if so much is fundamentally changing. And you're talking about risk and opportunity, but for us it's commonsensical perhaps, but it seems like a massive investment opportunity, no?
Yeah, and okay, let's look at China. They're not building the means of the global energy transformation, clean energy transformation, because they're climate activists at heart. They're doing it because they see a tremendous opportunity for money to be made, and as well economic competitiveness, but also the soft power of having every country in the world scrambling to make trade deals with you because they see you as a reliable partner. So I think we are very much at the beginning of a paradigm shift. We're in the midst of a paradigm shift. I think everyone feels it. A lot of people are still playing by rules of a system that doesn't quite exist anymore. Whoever is capable of identifying what the next system is going to look like and investing in owning the infrastructure of that system is going to be able to set the terms for everyone else. And that is what countries like China, not to use them as too much of an example, but that is what China is doing there, is they are trying to own the infrastructural means of that transition. So whether you like them or not, that is what's happening. And to pretend otherwise is to lose out on opportunity, to lose out on investment.
And this is where I want you have a unique perspective, being both across the pond and also representing our next generation. Why are people not seeing this opportunity? That sort of seems obvious to some, but from your perspective.
So it is common sense. Most people understand the fundamentals here. I think anybody would agree with you if you asked, is pollution bad? Is waste bad? They'd say yes. Is efficiency good? Yes. No matter what sort of beliefs you have, I think the number one thing we all agree on across politics, across social conversations, is the need for change. That is the through line across every conversation. And it doesn't matter what your opinion is on AI, on deregulation, on immigration, you probably have a strong one at this point. So the need for radical change, the appetite for things to really be shaken up is there.
It's also kind of happening.
And it's very much happening. It's very much happening. We're watching
technological solutions.
We're watching it play out every single day. Yeah. And so the appetite is there, but when I think what's really interesting when it comes to sustainability, when it comes to climate change, we actually have this ambient support. This is the issue that actually polls very popularly, pretty much globally, and pretty much in every political ideology. People are concerned about climate change, about rising heat, about food getting more expensive, and all those things are related. And so this is something that polls support for climate action and for environmental solutions is extremely popular, but it's ambient. And I think the reason that it's just ambient and not something people feel animated about and not something people are debating is because we haven't really worked hard to create that kind of cultural infrastructure for people to have something that they can live inside of and see themselves inside of, the way that I think everyone feels like they're taking a side and living inside of a dialogue and want and have a clear 1, 2, 3 for what they want to see in other political debates. So I think there's an opportunity for us as the people who have been in this industry for decades and are, more familiar with what's possible, what's not, to seize this moment and create that cultural infrastructure that gives people something aspirational. What we want to capture is young, ambitious people who want to be influential, who want to be consequential. We want the future politicians, leaders of the next wave of startups that become unicorns, billion-dollar valuations, and even urban planners, right? We want the next farmers to feel really, really ambitious and believe that this is possible. And right now, I don't think that the narrative we've presented for them makes them feel like this is an inevitable transition.
I know, I definitely really resonate with that. It's frustrating, the lack of leadership and visionaries that are centering in a positive narrative. There's so much, the history of the environmental movement is very much negative, as a lot of the facts are quite scary. But fear-based stats are more likely to stall than to inspire. It does ignite some of us to kick into gear when you understand what's on the horizon. But more than anything, it's like, where are the leaders and the visionaries and the people who are bringing this message of what the future can be that I actually want to be a part of? And what is a movement that I can join to that I feel is both possible and realistic, that I can get behind? And so how do we do this? How do we actually scale this kind of movement?
So this is something that I spend a lot of time thinking about.
That's why we have you here.
I am the founder of a relatively new next generation environmental think tank. So we're trying to do things quite differently from a typical think tank, in that, for one, we're oriented towards the general public, not the policy community. And for two, in order to do that, we are digital native. We're trying to meet people where they're at in culture. And so I think asking ourselves, what does it take to build that narrative? What we're missing is belief. People need to believe that these solutions are possible. And we need to start framing it as not as sacrifice, not as, don't fly, don't do this, don't do that, but as the opportunity for building. I think we want people to feel ambitious about this. And so in being digital native and trying to reach people where they're at inside culture, I think that is something that other political agendas have really well capitalized on, and it's our opportunity to do that now.
Yeah, and there's something interesting, with one, I think, good thing that is on the horizon. Going to riff here a little bit, but one good thing that's on the horizon is that we are going to be reconnected, whether we like it or not, to the real economy and real value. As there is more, as all this change is occurring, we're going to be brought back to, what are our core needs and what really matters in life, and what am I going to continue putting my money towards? And so as we have volatility, as we have disruption in fossil fuel and gas prices, which maybe you can speak to later, it's like, okay, then we really need some clean energy right now. We really need some infrastructure to enable our local communities. And there's going to be immense cash flow funneling into those directions, embedded in what is needed. And so there's this really cool, we have an opportunity to ride this wave of change, but maybe you can give some more examples of how you see this existing right now and coming to be.
So the reason I've chosen the direction for my work that I have, rather than what you are doing, which I admire so much, is just going deep inside the investment community and just seeing what's possible to deploy capital towards the solutions that are necessary, is because the reason I've chosen to do this more public-facing, cultural ideas work is because I believe this is a political bottleneck, not a technical one. We have the solutions. We have all of the solutions that we need to solve this problem. What we're missing is that political consensus that this is solvable. And so to put that into material words, right now the Strait of Hormuz is bottlenecked. 20% of the world's oil capacity is offline. We have been told for a very long time that renewables are unreliable. We have a globalized supply chain of fossil fuels that's dependent on being able to move fossil fuels on ships through very narrow points from one place to another. And if you interrupt that system, everything breaks. And that is not as reliable of a system as domestic renewable energy. No one is starting wars over solar panels, and it's not possible to blockade wind. Domestic renewable energy is the resilient energy system that we need. And I think countries like the UK, for example, that gets 30% of its energy from wind, is really wishing right now that they had even more renewable energy capacity. So, so looking at this as a it's not a technical bottleneck, because we know that fossil fuels are not cost competitive with renewable energy without $7 trillion of annual subsidies. And even then, solar is still cheaper than fossil fuels. This is a political bottleneck in that fossil fuel lobbyists have convinced the world's governments to keep those subsidies in place. And we have a political and, collective social lack of imagination around what's possible at the speed of transformation. Right now, we're pouring hundreds of billions of dollars into AI infrastructure. During in the 70s, there was a race to space. Right now, we need a race to the energy transition, and that is going to require us to have a cultural, vigorous momentum around the idea that these problems are solvable, but also around wanting to avoid extremely expensive problems like what we're dealing with right now. I mean, and this is not just an oil problem. A lot of our gas supply is also bottlenecked in the conflict in the Middle East right now. And the reason why that is more important than energy is because we majority fertilize the world's food crops with nitrogen-based synthetic petroleum fertilizers. And so a lot of our ability to grow this year's crop is right now bottlenecked, and the longer this conflict drags out, the next few weeks, the planting window of April is critical here for us to be able to have the crop that we need in it's in South Asia and it's not North Africa. Darn it. It's so hard to keep all these facts memorized in your brain.
You're pretty good at it, though.
I try my best. Sometimes you're just like, don't quote me on that. Please Google it for me. But so that is a really interesting bottleneck as well, because the reason why we're so dependent on these synthetic nitrogen fertilizers is because we landfill our food. 1/3 of the global food supply, it goes to landfill every single year. It's not food that we're eating, it's just being landfilled. And if we had the municipal and industrial composting infrastructure that we need to convert that into compost, into fertilizer, we would be able to use 30% less of these synthetic petroleum fossil fuels or fertilizers. So by not having closed loop circular systems, by not investing in the sustainable domestic alternative, by being reliant on these globalized supply chains of fossil fuels, we are having a very expensive problem right now that is going to cause food prices to skyrocket this year, potentially. That could cause food prices to skyrocket this year because we won't be able to fertilize our fields. And so it's really important to see how interconnected all these pieces are and to start thinking about deconnecting all of them. I think crises like this, because they're so expensive, are hopefully causing a lot of policymakers and other decision makers to move much faster on designing better systems, because we can't afford crises like this.
So to wrap this up in 30 seconds.
We're short on time.
We're short on time.
We're having too much fun.
What about the people in the room? What do we do? How can we bring this to the mainstream?
How can we bring this to the mainstream? We need to fund the cultural narrative. I know that sounds a little nebulous. It feels difficult to measure for people who love a hard number. But as I said a couple of times here, the bottleneck is political. It's not technical. What we need to do is build belief that this is possible and build hype around it. You look at like I mentioned earlier, the AI bubble. We have no guarantee that it'll ever be profitable. But the reason that we are piling into it is because of belief, because of fear of missing out. And so our fundamentals over here in the clean energy world and the world of circular solutions are actually much more sound. And if that doesn't attract you well enough, the bottlenecks that we've laid out here, then think of it this way. If you invest in building cultural narratives then you're going to make a lot more multiples on your Series A investment when everyone is piling into Series D because of FOMO at a premium.
Well, thank you, Sage, for your amazing presence on stage as always. Thank you for your advisory support for Una Terra. And thank you for building building this narrative that we really need. So thank you for being here.
Thank you, everyone.